What if I told you that The Empire Strikes Back almost had a completely different ending? Mark Hamill nearly died on set, and Darth Vader's biggest twist was kept secret with fake scripts. This is not just any Star Wars movie, it's the sequel that redefined the saga. Let's explore 10 weird facts about The Empire Strikes Back 1980 that will make you see it in a whole new light. A shocking script secret. When Darth Vader revealed, "I am your father," it shocked the world. But here's the weird part. The line wasn't even in the original script. To prevent leaks, George Lucas wrote a fake version where Vader said, "Obi-Wan killed your father." Only a handful of people knew the real twist. Lucas, director Irvin Kershner, and Mark Hamill, who was told just before filming. Hamill had to keep the secret even from his castmates, which was so stressful he later admitted it was one of the hardest acting challenges he ever faced. Even David Prowse, the man inside Vader's suit, had no idea he delivered the fake line on set. James Earl Jones, who voiced Vader, only discovered the truth during post-production. This secrecy paid off. When audiences heard the line for the first time, it became one of the most famous twists in cinema history. The Wampa attack in Hamill's accident. Early in production, Mark Hamill was still healing from a real-life car accident that had scarred his face. Rather than ignoring it, George Lucas and the team decided to cleverly explain his altered appearance through a new scene, the Wampa attack. The snow creature brutally swipes Luke across the face, giving an in-universe reason for the scars. What's weirder is that this entire sequence was added after filming had already started. The production team built an animatronic Wampa and staged the attack in reshoots. Although the creature was originally intended to have more screen time, much of it was cut because the animatronics didn't look convincing. Still, this weird behind-the-scenes adjustment ended up becoming an iconic moment in the film and showed how the team improvised around unexpected challenges. Luke's scars weren't just makeup, they were part of a clever storytelling patch. Han Solo was frozen because of Harrison Ford. At the end of Empire, Han Solo gets frozen in carbonite, a shocking and emotional cliffhanger. But the reason for this scene was practical, not just dramatic. Harrison Ford had only signed on for 2 films, unlike Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher, who had 3 picture contracts. Lucas wasn't sure if Ford would return for Return of the Jedi, so carbon freezing became a way to leave his fate open-ended. This created one of the most suspenseful moments in Star Wars history, with audiences unsure whether Han would survive. Ford himself later admitted he wasn't sure if he'd come back, since he wanted Han to die heroically. Ultimately, fan pressure and Lucas's persuasion brought him back. But the weird truth remains. Han Solo's carbonite cliffhanger was less about galactic storytelling and more about actor contracts and negotiating power in Hollywood. Yoda was almost played by a monkey. It's hard to imagine The Empire Strikes Back without Yoda, the wise little Jedi Master voiced and puppeteered by Frank Oz. But early in production, Yoda was almost played by a live monkey wearing a mask and holding a cane. The crew even tested this idea with a trained monkey. However, the results were comical rather than mystical. The monkey kept pulling off the mask and refused to behave as needed. George Lucas scrapped the plan and turned to puppet master Jim Henson for help. Henson recommended Frank Oz, who not only operated Yoda but gave him his unforgettable voice and personality. The change worked brilliantly, making Yoda one of cinema's most iconic characters. It's a weird but fascinating reminder of how close Star Wars came to having a very different kind of Jedi Master, one that might have ruined the film's tone completely. The harsh realities of Hoth. The Hoth sequences were filmed in Norway during one of the worst snowstorms the region had seen in decades. The weather was so brutal that the crew sometimes couldn't leave their hotel. Instead of wasting time, director Irvin Kershner improvised. For the scene where Luke collapses in the snow, they simply pushed Mark Hamill out of the hotel into the blizzard and filmed from the doorway. The result looked incredibly authentic because it was real. Hamill was genuinely freezing. The extreme conditions made filming miserable, with cameras and equipment constantly breaking down in the cold. Yet those struggles created some of the most iconic visuals in the Star Wars franchise. Ironically, the film's most otherworldly planet was captured by using Earth's most unforgiving weather. The actors didn't have to pretend to be cold. They were truly suffering in Hoth's icy wasteland. Vader's helmet made crew members faint. Darth Vader is one of cinema's most menacing villains, but playing him wasn't easy. The costume, particularly the helmet, was incredibly hot and claustrophobic. David Prowse, who wore the suit, often struggled with visibility and overheating. But the weirdest issue came during filming of the carbon freeze chamber sequence. The set was filled with smoke and bright lights, creating suffocating heat. Crew members working nearby began fainting from exhaustion and lack of oxygen. Even Prowse admitted the experience was nearly unbearable inside the suit. Despite the discomfort, the sequence went on to become one of Vader's most visually iconic moments, with the glowing orange mist surrounding him like a dark god. What audiences saw as cinematic beauty was, in reality, a dangerous and exhausting nightmare for the people on set. Vader's presence came at a heavy physical cost. Fake titles to hide production. To keep spoilers secret and avoid fan interference, George Lucas gave The Empire Strikes Back a fake working title, Blue Harvest. The tagline was, "Horror Beyond Imagination," making it sound like a cheap horror flick. Cast and crew even wore fake Blue Harvest hats and shirts to throw people off. This trick helped hide filming locations and prevented crowds from overwhelming the sets. It also protected against price gouging, since vendors would charge higher fees if they knew they were dealing with a Star Wars production. The codename worked so well that Lucasfilm continued the tradition for later films. For example, Return of the Jedi used the fake title Revenge of the Jedi. What started as a weird little cover-up became an ongoing Star Wars tradition and an inside joke for fans who love hunting down production secrets. The AT-AT battle was stop-motion magic. The legendary Battle of Hoth, featuring massive AT-AT walkers, was one of the most ambitious special effects sequences ever attempted. Instead of CGI, which didn't exist yet, the entire battle was created using stop-motion animation. Small models of the AT-ATs were painstakingly moved one frame at a time against miniature sets. This process took months, with animators working in freezing warehouses to simulate the cold look of Hoth. To make the walkers seem massive, cameras were slowed and positioned low to mimic the perspective of soldiers looking up. The attention to detail was so precise that some shots only produced a few seconds of usable footage per day. The end result was seamless, blending live action with animation to create one of the most memorable battles in Star Wars history. It's proof of the weird, painstaking artistry that defined 1980's special effects. The ending almost changed. Originally, The Empire Strikes Back ended with the Falcon flying away after rescuing Luke. But after test screenings, Lucas worried the ending felt too bleak and unresolved, so he ordered an additional scene showing Luke recovering and the fleet regrouping. This gave the film a slightly more hopeful tone while still leaving major cliffhangers unresolved. The weird part? This change happened just weeks before release, meaning the cast and crew rushed to shoot and insert the new ending. Without this adjustment, audiences might have left theaters feeling far more confused and unsatisfied. Instead, the updated ending perfectly balanced despair with anticipation for the next chapter. It shows how even the most carefully planned films can change drastically at the last minute to improve storytelling. Critics were initially mixed. Today, The Empire Strikes Back is hailed as one of the greatest sequels ever made. But in 1980, the critical reception was surprisingly mixed. Some reviewers found it too dark, too slow, or too unfinished compared to the original. They didn't appreciate the cliffhanger ending and thought the new characters, like Yoda, were too strange. Over time, however, audiences embraced the film's bold choices, and critics reevaluated it. Its reputation grew so much that it's now often ranked as the best Star Wars film ever made. The weird irony is that the movie once seen as risky and flawed is now celebrated as the crown jewel of the saga. Its journey from mixed reviews to beloved classic shows how perceptions of films can change dramatically with time.